When I was younger, I grew up in the countryside of Japan, and what that meant was I spent a lot of time playing in the rice paddies and exploring the hillsides and having fun outdoors. When I got into the upper elementary school ages, that was when I really got into hiking and mountain climbing. There's a place near Kobe where there's this mountain, and you climb the mountain, and there's this big lake near the top of it. We had gone on this hiking trip and climbed up the mountain, and I was so amazed. I drew on that inspiration when we were working on the Legend of Zelda game, and we were creating this grand outdoor adventure where you could go through these narrow confined spaces and come upon this great lake. Shigeru Miyamoto. Life can be stressful sometimes. It can be work, it can be school. Heck, it can be both. No matter the case, keeping up with what people expect of you is usually very stressful. Combining that with social and psychological needs gives you one hell of a tough pill to swallow. But that's life for you. There's not much that can be done about that, really. It's better to find joy despite, and within, if possible, our daily responsibilities, instead of fighting directly against them. Most of us gamers, at least in part, turn to video games as a form of entertainment and escapism. Of course, there's much more to it than that, but I can't deny that, to some extent, games do provide one hell of an escapist experience. Hell, that's why people self-insert in RPGs, for example. But even as a gamer myself, I can't deny that most of us overdo it a little. Of course, there's not much wrong with that at all. I mean, my backlog is humongous, and I'm not even halfway done with it. And with all these huge RPGs coming out, it's basically required that you play at least like 3 hours a day to actually make substantial progress. But go ahead, ask your doctor and see how healthy the Endwalker release week was for you. Yeah, exactly, that's what I mean. I don't know how many of you can relate to this, but even I usually feel kinda psychologically bad if I binge a game or TV series. It just usually doesn't feel, well, healthy. That's why it's important to pick out hobbies aside from sticking to a screen all day. There's a lot of options to go for, from sports to reading to playing an instrument. There's a lot of very interesting stuff that's easy to be enthusiastic about. But I feel like there's one hobby that's very overlooked by a lot of people, and it's kind of ideal for adventure-loving gamers and nerds like myself and many others. Well, I tend to use adventuring as an all-encompassing word for it, but what I mean by it is essentially all the stuff that involves like walking, exploring, sightseeing, etc. It basically is a huge jumble of hiking, trekking, camping, going on walks, going on runs, etc. I feel like people usually forget about this kind of stuff because either they're too focused on their jobs or too focused on more, well, let's say, structured hobbies such as sports and the like. I'll admit, adventuring isn't exactly easy to get into. Well, actually, scratch that. It's easy as hell to get into compared to other hobbies, but it's still kinda hard to be in the right mindset to do it all the time. It takes a certain, well, attitude, at least. I mean, I'd even consider myself lucky because this kind of stuff almost comes naturally to me, but I know how humans work. And I know not everyone's like this. Sometimes people need a little push or some sort of motivation, and well, that's why I'm here. I'm making this video so I can show you guys how fun and exciting and worth it doing all this stuff is. Plus, in a way, it's sort of enlightening too. Anyway, I'm getting too far ahead of myself. Either way, I've been doing this kind of stuff for about 2, maybe 3 years depending on how you look at it. I used to do it a lot more with friends, but due to disaligning interests, check the Deltarune video. I've been doing it alone most of the time. Either way, if you're going to a new place, especially some kind of remote trail, I highly recommend getting company of some kind. A party, if you will. Because these places can get really dangerous, and while that's part of the fun, getting robbed and or lost for a long while really isn't. In fact, I should probably stop exploring trails by myself, even if I am very familiar with them. In case you're like me and don't have many friends who are willing to go on such adventures all the time, I recommend dragging out a family member once or twice. At least when you're visiting dangerous places you don't know. Well, that's what I do anyway. Aside from people to accompany you, it's also important to make sure you take all the necessary items for an adventure. Of course, those really depend on where you're going and what exactly you're doing. First of all, it's usually a good idea to take a bottle of water. Gosh, there was this one time when I was with my sister and we decided to climb this 1,000-meter tall peak. And at the start of the path, there's actually a little station of sorts. where they check your identity and stuff before allowing you to climb the mountain. They are also supposed to make sure you have a certain amount of water with you. But here's the thing. Me and my sister, we kind of forgot to bring water, and we lied our way into the mountain anyway. We assumed the climb was gonna be easier than it actually was, and I was hella thirsty by the halfway point. Plus, we had nearly no idea of how far into it we actually were. When we were getting close to the top, I was visibly exhausted and my sister was begging me to return for my own good. But I went and pulled an anime protagonist and just kept going about never giving up and stuff. It was great. Luckily, when we got to the top, we found another crew of people who kindly gave me 2 of their heck ton of tangerines they brought with them. That managed to make me feel slightly more hydrated, well, enough to have the energy to go all the way back down to the base safely. After that, I had the best freaking glass of watermelon juice of my life, my god. Oh wait, sorry, what was I talking about again? Oh yeah, things to bring, yeah, if you're going to the woods or anything natural of the sort, I'm gonna have to break it to ya. Repels aren't just good for avoiding random encounters in Pokemon. Using insect repellents is actually really essential for this kind of stuff. You know, besides itching a lot, mosquito bites can actually transmit some pretty bad illnesses. So trust me, be prepared. Also, make sure you're wearing the most comfortable clothes possible for the job. If you're exploring a place with lots of tall grass, I recommend wearing boots and or pants, as that stuff can sure as hell itch. A wooden sword is optional. It grants you the benefit of making you feel cool as heck, with the drawback of making you look like a fucking idiot to most people. So, it evens out. Oh yeah, sunscreen, even on cloudy days, is also kinda important, especially if you have sensitive skin like me. Hey, I know it can be a hassle, but at least remember to pass it on the face to keep it healthy and smooth looking. Aside from gear, having some kind of direction is always a good thing. You can always look up trails and cool landmarks near you, but there's also stuff like this cool app I found the other day called All Trails, and no, it's not a guide to the Trails series of games. It's an app where you can find tons of cool trails with maps, difficulty ratings, and user-generated reviews. It's not a sponsorship, I swear. I'd say it's a pretty useful tool. Made me aware of some pretty cool spots I wouldn't have known otherwise. It's not strictly necessary at all. In fact, let me be real here. Going to trails or mountains or whatever is not really needed at all if you want to start adventuring. I'm sure that, as I was describing those earlier parts, some of you were thinking to yourselves, but I live in the middle of the city, or something. This kid's asking me to climb mountains, but even if I wanted to, I really wouldn't be able to without a 3-hour-long car ride to the nearest trail. But listen to me. Here's the catch. Even something as simple as going on a walk can be gratifying as hell, depending on the circumstances. No, like, seriously, it can be so fulfilling if you go into it with the right mindset. Just put in your favorite adventure game OSTs, stuff like Octopath or Zelda usually does the trick for me, and start walking. Pay attention to the stuff around you. Keep track of buildings and streets you don't know, try to find new places. More than anything else, to me, adventure is about the wonder of exploring and seeing new places, and that's, in concept, kind of easier in the context of a city than a linear trek up a mountain even. Let me tell ya, there's no feeling like finding a street you've never been to, walking through a bunch of unfamiliar houses and stores, and then ending up in a place you already know. Like, yeah, when I say it like this, it does sound a bit disheartening, and 7 out of 10 times, you're just gonna end up walking a big circle. But listen, it's your big circle, and that's genuinely an experience you've never had in your life before. You now know how 2 previously unrelated places connect, in a way you never knew. It genuinely feels really good. In general, just keeping this wondrous mindset is usually really rewarding. For example, there was one time when my dad was taking me and his car across a short mountainside road near here. He was just going to his job, and I had decided to take the ride with him so I could go running around that area and stuff. But on our way there, I was looking through the window and I noticed this weird little entrance. Out of curiosity, and not expecting much, I asked my dad if that place was private property, and he said he didn't think so. Knowing that, my adventure sensors started tingling, and I asked him to stop the car and leave me right there. A short walk later, I found myself in front of a beautiful cliff from which I could basically see the whole town. Right behind it, there was also a climbable road, on which I walked a bit on, before I realized it was too long for me to realistically get through on that evening alone. Anyway, yeah, it was great! And there are many awesome stories from where this one came from. In general, just adventuring and exploring simply... well, it feels great! You know when Breath of the Wild came out and all the critics called it Distractions, the video game? Because the world was so open and there were so many things to do, you'd get sidetracked all the time. Yeah, go out with $15 in your pocket, your cell phone, and headphones playing video game music. You'll achieve pretty much the same effect in real life. And if you're looking for something more similar to a linear dungeon, again, trails are a really, and I do mean really, fun way to get it, while also collecting precious and happy memories. Because after all, that's what we all live for in the end. Plus, there's nothing like coming back from a fun and long day of adventuring and just being able to chill out. Listen, I guarantee it's absolutely extra cozy. As I kind of discussed before, doing nothing for an extended period of time does feel kinda bad. Doing nothing when you're already physically tired, on the other hand, feels really good, actually. Being able to take a nice shower, play your favorite game, and eat a good portion of chicken nuggies, with the knowledge that you had a great and memorable day, makes all the damn difference. Listen, I don't really know why I'm making this video either. I made this channel with the intent of talking about video games and freaking cartoons, but here I am writing a 2,000-word video essay essentially about going outside. But I just know that this is something that is worth more people's time, and is genuinely one of the ways I find purpose and fulfillment in life. Sometimes we get all too engaged in visiting X place, having to go to Y place, that we just forget to just look around and have some goddamn fun. And that's genuinely sad to see. If my stories and advice weren't enough to convince you, I just ask you to go outside and take a walk. Forget about your responsibilities for a second, and just focus on taking in your environment. Breathe. Think about life, philosophy, whatever it is that you like to ponder about while on walks, and tell me if it wasn't at least mildly entertaining. Come on, I'm waiting. It might seem like I'm just here asking greasy nerds to go touch some grass, and while that might be the case, yeah, sure, trust me, touching grass is pretty cool. I can't imagine how my life would be right now if I had never known what it feels like to be at a high place, look over to the horizon and see a cool spot, walk all the way over to it, and then see that high place you were at before from a totally different perspective. I guess what I mean is, within our own lives, we have lots of responsibilities, as well as free time. Sometimes, we might fail to find purpose, or something that's fulfilling on a deeper level. Different people find different ways to find that fulfillment. One of my ways to find self-fulfillment is adventuring, or exploring, or trekking, or whatever the hell you want to call it. Even so, this isn't much of a solidified or proper hobby for most people, and that's really sad because I'm sure there are lots of people out there who would really benefit both mentally and physically from being able to call themselves actual adventurers.